Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. I was hoping that G would be able to be on with us. There is a family emergency going on with his mother-in-law in Ukraine, and she's in very serious condition, and it's extremely difficult to get medical attention out there. As a matter of fact, if you are in your 80s, as I understand it from him, and you need a doctor, just forget all about it. You know, they won't even give you hydration. They won't even give you an IV with saline. You're on your own. And are we headed that way? It looks like we're going that way. It's pretty sad. So, I will contact him when he's available, and we'll reschedule him to come on USA Prepares with us. And we're going to talk about some really interesting things. We're going to talk about, collectibles. We're going to talk about counterfeits. How can you tell if what you're interested in is a counterfeit? We're going to talk about, furniture. I'm talking about collectibles and furniture, military, porcelain, documents, signatures. You know, you can buy an Adolf Hitler signature and Martin Bormann signature and a Rommel signature and an Eisenhower signature. And we're going to talk about comics, comic art, baseball cards, pretty much anything you can collect. And he is quite the expert on rings, private purchase rings for people who were in the military, all branches of the military and all theaters in all countries. I kid you not. So he's known as a worldwide expert in that field. So we'll get him on. I'm sorry that he's going through all these family health crises right now. It's just terrible. But he'll be back with us. So it's just me for hour number one. Hour number two is going to be Joe from guns80.com, GUNS80.com, and we're going to be talking about how to build your own unregistered, unlicensed, no paperwork AR-15, completely legally. What does it take? How do they work? What do they cost? Who can do it? How much skill do you need? And the rules. So that'll be the second hour today. So yesterday, the heat index was 99, and there's a reason why I'm telling you all these things. The heat index yesterday was 99 here in Missouri. It was blistering hot. The sun's rays were just unbearable. I could go out for a little bit, and then I'd have to come back into the house out of the sun, cool off, hydrate, go back out, and rinse and repeat. It was 106 in Arizona, 110 in Texas, and 106 in Louisiana. So, from my research, we can expect extreme temperatures hitting 110 in this country, United States of America, for about a month, especially in the Southwest. So the question I have for you is, do you have a plan B should the grid go down? So right now, daytime temperatures in a large area of the United States of America will reach 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit above normal for about a month. New England to California. We can expect, in my opinion, a negative impact on corn and bean crops. Corn and bean crops. Now, the power grid is not quite at a record level, but it's close. The record level was set in 2011. And what's driving the grid to the extreme load the breaking point, is the fact that people are allegedly working from home. So instead of having just that big air conditioning system running where you work, we're running lots of little ones at home. And they're probably not as efficient, for one thing. For the second thing, there's lots more. So instead of just leaving your house and not having air conditioning running during the day, we're running air conditioning during the heat of the day. So what does that mean? Well, the electric utilities have, without your permission, without your consent, installed smart meters. And these meters talk to each other in a grid, wirelessly, over the electric wire grid as well, through the air. Lots of different ways of communicating, but they communicate. And they send back real time what's happening at your house. So they know exactly how much electricity, meaning the utilities know exactly how much electricity you are using at any given moment, actually any given second. And what they've decided to do is deploy these smart meters so that they can adjust your electric bill real time. So when you use electricity the most, when you need it the most, they will raise the price per kilowatt hour. So during the heat of the summer, when you've got to have that air conditioning or die, that's when they raise the rates. When you have to have your heat pump running when it's freezing cold in the winter, or you die, they raise the rates. That's what they do. The board of directors of these corporate utilities have a fiduciary responsibility to either their members or their shareholders, and that is profit, 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 above everything else. So how do you raise profit? Well, you raise the rates, you decrease the maintenance, and you pay people as little as possible. That's what you do. That's what happened in California. They forgot about maintenance. They raised the rates. Fires killed people. And they said, we'll have to do better next time. So how much are the electricity rates going to go up? Well, from my research, it looks like it's going to be about 10 to 30%. So it looks like just about everybody's electric bill is going to go up, not only because you're going to use more electricity, but because they're going to charge you more for each unit of electricity. So you can expect to see power bills in the very near future between 10 and 30% higher. And as I mentioned many times recently, I suggest you prepare for blackouts, rolling blackouts, brownouts, and rolling brownouts. And what are they? Well, a blackout is no electricity. A rolling blackout is, we don't have enough electricity, so we'll just take down one area at a time, and we'll give electricity to everybody else. So we'll just say, Section 1, you don't get any right now, but everybody else does. Then we turn off the electricity for Section 2, and everybody else gets it but Section 2. And then we turn off the electricity for they, meaning the utilities, turn off the electricity for Section 3, and then everybody else gets electricity. That's a rolling blackout. Rolling brownout is, we don't have enough electricity, so we will reduce the amount of current that everybody gets. And they do that by voltage. So what happens is instead of, here's what happens. You get somewhere between 110 and 130 volts. And what is it called? So when people talk about, what does that drill use? Well, it's a 120 volt drill. Well, it will operate between 110 and 130 volts. More than 130 volts, the drill runs hot. Less than 110 volts, the drill runs hot. So electric motors need a lot of current to start, typically between 2 and 3x of the running current. What that means is if an electric motor takes 100 watts to run, it takes 200 to 300 watts to start it running, to get it moving, spinning. Okay? So what's going to happen as you have these brownouts, you won't have enough electricity. It's going to be really hard on these motors. Now, what would those motors be in? Well, you don't have to worry too much about that electric fan that you have in your ceiling, the ceiling fan. You don't have to worry too much about that, or the attic fan, because they're pretty rugged. But the ones that have trouble would be the ones in your heating and cooling system. Central air. Your compressors that are driven by electric motors in your window air conditioning units and your whole house air conditioning units. and your washing machine, and your electric dryer, and your gas dryer, and your dishwasher, and your electric mixer, but not so much the electric mixer. I mean, that's pretty rugged. But it needs full voltage too. So you'll be facing less voltage. Now, how do you know what the voltage is? Well, you get a meter. You get a digital volt ohm meter, VOM, volt ohm meter, and you can learn how to do it. You can go to YouTube and look at how to put the two probes in your electrical socket, and it'll tell you how many volts you've got. Another really easy way, probably the best way, is to buy something called a kilowatt, Kill-A-W-A-T-T, kill a watt. And you've got dashes between the words, like kill-A-watt. And what this does, it's a meter. You plug it into a receptacle, and it's about the size of a little larger than a deck of cards, but about that size. And it has a digital display, and it's got some buttons on it. And you can see what the voltage is coming out of your outlet. Or if you plug a device into it, there's a receptacle right on this kilowatt device that you plug into your outlet, and it will tell you how many watts something is using. So, for example, I wanted to know, I bought a used freezer, a chest freezer, and I wanted to know how many watts it was. Because I've got a plan for, since we have a solar system, or if I want to use the generator backup, can I run this darn thing? Well, a kilowatt will tell you how many watts that device will use. It also tells you the voltage of the outlet. And around here, we have about 123 plus volts most of the time, maybe 123.7. And sometimes it bumps up to maybe close to 127. And sometimes it goes down to about 121. But it's always over 120. And that's good, because we're first off the grid here. So we have a solar system that is on-grid, off-grid, and hybrid. And because it's summertime, I'm using the grid to cool the house because of central air conditioning. Because frankly, our solar system does not have enough capacity to run a central air conditioning system. It just doesn't. And I don't know anybody whose does. So because of that, I use the grid for air conditioning. And then we run everything else on our house, or almost everything else, on our solar system. Now, I can throw the switch anytime I want and go right off the grid instantly. I mean, I can be off the grid in, I'd say 5 seconds. But it's better for me right now to be connected to the grid for air conditioning. So here's the point. You might want to consider a solar system, but I would never buy a grid-tied system, meaning you have to have the grid in order to have your system work. I would never buy one of those. And that's what the electric companies, the electric utilities want you to do. They want you to buy a grid-tied system. So you have your solar panels on your roof, and then you sell them electricity when the sun is shining. But when the grid goes down, you lose the clock, the 60-cycle clock that your system needs in order for your system to work. So you have nothing, no electricity at all when the grid goes down. So I was telling you about the kilowatt, and it's a device you ought to consider getting. It's about $25. You can buy it on eBay. Sometimes you can find them at junk stores if you decide that you're going to go to one of those junk stores. I'm talking about Goodwill and that kind of thing. And what it really is great for is how much electricity does the device use? So, for example, I mentioned that we bought a used chest freezer. It's about 18 cubic feet, and it's an old one. It's made by RCA Whirlpool, but it has a different badge on it. And we have a few of those, and I wanted to compare how much electricity each one of them uses. So naturally, I plugged them in, through the kilowatt and hit the button that says watts. And it told me one of them was about 250 watts running. Not starting, but running. So you figure it takes 2 to 3 times as much wattage to get that freezer compressor to start as it does to keep it running. And so one of them was 250 watts, another one was 200 watts, another one was, a little less than that, maybe 150 watts. So the smaller they are, the lower the wattage consumption. So my concern was how much generator or how much solar power are these devices going to use? So I plan accordingly. I just don't connect devices to our solar system without knowing what the burn rate is, if you want to call it burn rate. Well, there's another button on this kilowatt device that's really, really neat. And that is an elapsed time consumption. So, for example, you know for a fact that unless you have a smart refrigerator, if you have an old-fashioned one like we have, the compressor kicks on when the thermostat determines that it needs to cool the inside of the box. You know that the light comes on when you open the door. And if you don't have the door open, and if you don't have the defrost cycle running, if you have a frost-free type freezer, then, and the light's not on, the defrost is not on, and the compressor's not on, it's not using any electricity. But how much electricity does it use? Like for a month? Well, the kilowatt device, the meter, if you will, has a button that you can push that will tell you over time how much electricity that device has used. And that was really neat. So I hit that button and I started it on day one, and I watched the display. Oh, here's how much it used today. Here's how much it used 2 days, 3 days. Here's how much electricity it used per month. And then if you want to know, if you're connected to the grid, how much that costs you, you can look at the number of kilowatts and multiply that times the number of cents per kilowatt hour that your electricity utility charges you. So, for example, around here it's 10 or 11 cents per kilowatt hour. So let's say 10 cents to make it simple. So if I use 1 kilowatt, I know that costs me 10 cents. If I use 10 kilowatts, it costs me $1. And I can look at how much it costs me per month. And if you want to know, it will support up to 15 amps. So what does that mean? That means you could probably run a small window air conditioner on it and determine exactly how many watts that is. Now I bought a used, small window air conditioning unit. One that uses R410A refrigerant. I really wanted one that used R12, which is a much older refrigerant and much better, but I couldn't find one. And typically those have been beat up and left in barns and left in garages, and they're all dusty and dirty and moldy. So it's going to be really tough to find one that's in pristine condition that hasn't been used very much. So I couldn't find one, so I bought one as a spare window air conditioning unit. No, what would I do with that? We have central air. Well, I don't expect the central air conditioning system to work forever. I really don't. And I don't want to buy all the parts for a central air conditioning system for replacement. It'd be really expensive. It'd be in the thousands of dollars. So what I did for an emergency was I bought a used, great condition window air conditioning unit. You can get them for about $100. A nice, clean, used one. And you can stick that in a window, and you can shut off, parts of your house and just dehumidify and cool your house. And it won't be like central air, that's for sure, but it won't be really humid either. So you'll remove the humidity, and you'll keep the house from getting moldy. Because if you leave the windows open, it'll be terrible because of all the moisture. We'll be right back. It's just me today for hour number 1, and then Joe's going to join us. We're going to talk about guns. Wow, we in a world of hurt. We got 3 guys running for president, or at least claiming to be running for president / CEO of the United States of America. One is a plagiarist. He's been in Congress for almost his entire life, and he doesn't know how he got these problems. He is the problem. That's one guy. Another guy allegedly paid someone to take the Scholastic Aptitude test for him so that he could fraudulently gain admittance to the Wharton School, the Wharton Business School of the University of Pennsylvania. Prestigious school, no question about it. has a higher reputation than the university that I went to, because Wharton School is top shelf in terms of business. Not that I went to a substandard one. I went to a pretty good one too, but not that good. And but I got in honestly. I actually took the Scholastic Aptitude test for myself. And then we got another guy who is allegedly bipolar, and he says that he's going to seek the advice of Elon Musk. That's what we need. We need a guy who wants to bore holes in the atmosphere frivolously. We want a guy who wants cars to drive themselves, and a guy who's interested in expending the natural resources of the earth frivolously. 3 absolutely awful candidates. We don't have a good candidate. Now, of course, I'd like to see the one who allegedly paid someone to get into the Wharton School. He would be my first choice of a bad lot. He would be my first pick, because the others are worse. So here's an interesting thing. And we're talking about a spare air conditioning unit, a Plan B. So you can buy a 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8,000 BTU unit. Make sure that if you do, that if you have a generator to run that darn thing, that it can support the startup load. Okay? And that if you have a generator, well, the way to do it, in my opinion, the best choice for a generator is a diesel. It's the most efficient. And if you get one that runs at 1,800 RPM rather than 3,600 RPM, it'll last a lot longer. Diesel fuel has about 130,000 BTUs of energy per gallon. Gasoline is about roughly 100,000 BTUs per gallon, depending on the kind of gasoline. And propane about 90,000 BTUs. So in terms of efficiency, you can say, well, all things being equal, diesel is going to give you the most run time per gallon. Gasoline in the middle, propane the least. But propane is the cleanest. But you still, a propane generator is really a gas engine generator that's been modified to run on propane. They still run at 3,600 RPM, which is wide open throttle, which means that they're going to burn out very quickly. It doesn't matter whether you have one that is a whole house generator with a automatic starting system. I wouldn't want one of those anyway. I wouldn't depend on that, and I wouldn't want the complexity. I want a really simple generator that has manual controls, and I would want to know how to use them. And I'd want to know how to maintain the generator. And that's what we have. We have a diesel generator, and it's 5 kilowatts, but it weighs like 1,100 pounds. It's a military surplus. MEP-002A. MEP-002A. I believe that's the model number. Could be -003A, but I believe it's 002A. 2-cylinder Onan air-cooled military surplus from the 1990s. You can get them for about $1,500. They are fabulous. They are really big, really loud, and really heavy. And you can fabricate yours to run on with a 4-cylinder, Asian type automobile muffler, which is what I did. I bought a muffler for a Toyota or a Honda or something like that, and a new muffler, and I fabricated the exhaust system so that it runs through that muffler and it's really, really quiet. But I also have the acoustic sound dampening kit to go with that particular generator, because it is so loud. Without that retrofit kit that was offered to the military, I think that kit was like $5,000 as an add-on. Your tax dollars paid $5,000 or so, maybe even more, for the sound dampening kit for this particular generator, just for the sound part. And it is so loud without that if you have ear muffs on, like for shooting, you're going to need to have earplugs underneath your hearing protection over your ears. It's so loud. It's unbearable. It's over 110 decibels. It's like a jackhammer. And you can probably hear it for half a mile, unless you have the retrofit kit for it. Now here's an interesting thing. Oh, bottom line is, so what are you going to do about air conditioning? Because I believe, and you don't believe me, but I believe that the grid is going to experience blackouts and brownouts. I really believe it this summer because of the heat and people allegedly working from home. All right. So what does it cost when your air conditioning unit quits? And here's what happens. And I know people recently who have experienced this, a couple of them already. And so their air conditioning system quits and they call the guy. And the guy says, comes out and looks at it and goes, okay, well, you know what? This thing is 10 years old, so we shouldn't even repair it. We should just replace it. We'll replace the inside unit and we'll replace the outside unit. And, because it's 10 years old, the refrigeration uses an older Freon, an older refrigerant, and it's hard to get. And it's $100 a pound for the refrigerant. $100 a pound. And how much does it use? Well, about roughly 5 pounds. So $500 worth of refrigerant. But you know what? Since it's 10 years old and since it uses the R-22 refrigerant, which is so hard to get, we should just put the new stuff in, all new, and then you won't have to worry about it. To that I say nonsense. And I'll tell you why. So I know someone who I was on the phone with, and that's what they were told. And they said, you know what? By the way, since we're going to replace the inside unit, the inside coils, the outside coils, well, we ought to replace the backup or the heating system too. So we'll put in a new gas furnace because that's 10 years old too. So we'll replace the inside unit, the outside unit, and the gas heating unit. So $6,500 and you'll be good to go and everything will be new. Well, I came up with a different plan. I said, you know what? That's nonsense. I know it's wrong. I haven't even seen it and I know what's wrong. It's the A coil, because what happens with air conditioning systems, when that compressor starts up, it creates pressure inside the A coil. The A coil is that coil that gets cold inside the house. It's made out of aluminum tubes, typically. And it expands and contracts and gets heated and cooled, and eventually they crack and they leak. So what the refrigeration guy, the salesman, would say is, we don't know where it's leaking, can't find it. Well, you just replace the whole A coil. How much does that cost? I don't know, $250, $300. $250 or $300. Now, what about that real hard to get $100 a pound R-22 refrigerant? We'll call it Freon. You can buy it. You can buy it on eBay for $177 for 10 pounds. Now think about that. It's not $100 a pound. It's $18 a pound. 1/5 of the cost that they say it costs. And it's available. So what I recommended to this one particular person was, get rid of that guy. He's an idiot. He just wants to sell you $6,500 worth of stuff, and you can pat yourself on the back after you cry from spending so much money. You can say, well, I got a new system. But the new system's worse than the old system, because the new refrigerant is nowhere near as good as the old refrigerant. R-22 is really, really, really good. And you can buy it on eBay. Virgin R-22 for $177 on eBay for 10 pounds. And $250 or $300 for the A coil. Now let's say I'm totally wrong and it's not the A coil. Let's say it's the outside unit that's leaking, the compressor and the condensing coils outside. Well, how much do they cost? Well, a 3-ton unit, which is what, 3 tons doesn't mean it weighs 3 tons. It means 3,600 BTUs. I'm sorry. Yeah. 36,000 BTUs. 1 ton is 12,000 BTUs. How much does that cost? About $1,100. So if I'm totally wrong, we will have spent $250 for the A coil. We'll have spent less than $200 for the refrigerant, and we get 2 refills with that refrigerant, because 5 pounds is what it takes, and there's 10 pounds in the cylinder. So you can do it twice for less than $200. And then we'd have to spend another $1,100 or so for the outside unit. So now instead of $6,500, we are at $1,100 plus $200 plus $250. Way better, right? And everything's new. And And you still have, if you don't have to get the outside unit, you still have the A coils. And you'll still get maybe another 10 years out of the outside coils and compressor. And here's what your government's doing. They are banning the use of refrigerants. And there are dates associated with this. Now, here are some of the big ones. So for household refrigerators and freezers, there's an R134A. That's what's in your car, unless you have a brand new car. R134A. That will be banned in January 2021. Ooh, like 6 months. Do you have one of those? Does yours leak? Well, unless you're extra special and yours doesn't leak because everybody else's does, you ought to consider getting some R134A. How much does it cost? Well, you can get it full retail at an auto store for, let's say, $10 a can. How much does it take? Well, 1 3/4 to 2 cans to recharge your system if you have a slow leak. So $20. Or if you're really smart, you go buy it someplace else. You buy it by the case, which is what I do. Not that I'm smart, but I buy it by the case. And you can get it for $3.33 a can. Shipped. So we're looking at, for you and me, the bottom 93%, we're looking at R134A, the most common refrigerant for automobiles, and some refrigerators and freezers in homes, and the retrofit for, vintage cars like my old AMX, which replaced the R12. The R134A replaced the R12. And that's what I use in the John Deere tractor, R134A. Phased out January 1, 2021. Brought to you by your government. So that means that when you talk to your local refrigeration guy, they'll tell you, oh yeah, well, you need a new one. You need a new what? Well, you need a new window unit because, because it uses that old-fashioned, can't get any more refrigerant. Your central air conditioning uses that old-fashioned, can't get any more refrigerant. That's not true. You can get it. And there are drop-in replacements. Well, sort of drop-in. They're not as good. Bob will be right with you after the break. So, Bob will be with you in just a few seconds. I just want to wrap this up. So, what am I talking about? So, the student who I was on the phone with about this air conditioning system, that student was told $4,500 to replace the inside and the outside unit because the system had a leak, and it's too hard to figure out where the leak is. Well, the leak is the A coil. Yeah. $6,500 if you want to replace the air conditioning system and put a new gas furnace in to replace the perfectly working gas furnace that's there. Okay. My recommendation was replace the A coil for $250, buy refrigerant for about $200, the R22 that they say you can't get. It's nonsense. You can get it on eBay. And the whole job would be $450 for the parts, and then pay a technician $200 or $250 to do the whole thing. So in terms of the parts, 1/10 the cost. My recommendation was 1/10 the cost. So yes, it can be done. Bob in Michigan, welcome.
Yeah. So I see you're talking about air conditioning. Boy, I don't know if that's working on an air conditioning unit is anything I'd want to tackle there.
Why not? Wait. Why not? Why not?
Well, it's just not. I think it's easier to just go out and get hire a company that's qualified to do that. For me,
right. Okay, hold it.
For the average
Let me give you an
person.
example. Well, okay, I'm an average guy. So before I worked on an air conditioning system, I never worked on one.
Uh-huh.
I decided that, that guy puts his pants on the same way that I do. I didn't think he was all that smart. The first guy I saw do it, so I decided I was going to learn how to do it. Okay, now, have I ever been to air conditioning school? No. But I fix air conditioners. I know how to do it. I can go toe to toe with pretty much anyone who works on an air conditioning system. We can talk about pressures. We can talk about temperature versus pressure. We can talk about scroll versus, 1-speed, 2-speed. We can talk about, SEER, the seasonal efficiency rating. I mean, I can do that. Oh, it's not that hard. I bought the equipment. I bought the manifold gauges. I bought an evacuation pump. I know how to do it. Now.
Cool.
Well,
that's great.
Actually, okay, yeah. And you can too. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, fortunately,
these guys, I got to tell you a very quick story.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a quick story. So a guy I know has a friend in the air conditioning business, and he had a commercial rental property where he conducted his business. We'll call it a strip mall, right? He had a business in a strip mall, and absolutely it required air conditioning, or he could not do his work. All right, so his air conditioning unit quit. He called his buddy, and his buddy said, it's old. We need to replace the evaporator. We need the compressor, the condenser, the equivalent of the inside-outside unit. Let's say $10,000. And we can do it for you, and we can have it done in 2 or 3 days. Called another guy up because this guy knows me. He decided he wasn't going to take his best buddy's, this contractor's opinion. He called another guy. Another guy went up on the roof, came down a half hour later, said all fixed. He said, what was it? And he said, well, it was the capacitor. The starting capacitor on the compressor was bad. I put a new one in. The bill's $30. 30. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
There's plenty of scams in the heating and cooling business. Refrigeration
right.
and
so
forth. Yeah.
What would you like to talk about?
Oh, well, the thing have you seen all they're advertising this little tabletop air cooler. Now, for some reason, there's ads all over the place for this little thing. It's about $90. And it's nothing but a little fan that sits on a desktop. You pour some water into it, and they say it'll cool a room off in like 60 seconds. Have you seen?
You know what? I've only gone as far as college chemistry and physics. I haven't gone any farther than that. But I did study it at the university.
Yeah.
And that violates pretty much every law of thermodynamics that I've studied.
I know.
So I would have to say it's absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Just, I bite my tongue when I hear some commercials on the radio, and I don't listen to much radio, but they talk about, hey, you can have this, almost like a pocket-sized solar panel, and it, can recharge your car. Okay, it can recharge your car's battery, but it'll take 6 years.
Yeah. Yep. So anyhow, well, if you catch one of those ads, you'll see what a joke it is. Yeah.
I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't appear on.
It may make you feel cool, but it isn't going to cool off a room. It's not possible.
Okay, it's okay. When you said that, I was thinking about they sell these bags of chemical, and you hang it in your basement, and it will dehumidify your basement. Really? Well, my dehumidifier will take out, let's say, 20 pints of water a day. This thing will take out maybe 1 pint of water once.
Yeah.
And then it's done. So if it seems like it's too good to be true, that's because it
probably is.
Really? Yeah. Hey, Bob, thanks so much. Looks like Guns 80 is going to be with us. Second hour, we're going to be talking about how to build an AR-15 legally without paperwork from the big bad system. Privately and without paperwork. You got 22s? Because they'll fire an AR-15 if you get the right conversion kit. No kidding. Hey, Bob, thanks so much for calling in. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. We're looking for Joe from guns80.com, and he's not here yet. So Nathan is making some calls to see if we can find out if he's going to be on the broadcast. So that's what's happening. So until then, you've got me, and I'll be talking about some tips from my book. Interestingly, I mentioned over the last month or so, maybe even longer than that, I've listened to our current president. I don't plan on beating him up. He's got enough problems without that. But here's a guy who allegedly, studied at the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania's prestigious Wharton School. But his lexicon is not commensurate with that kind of education. He used the word huge, wonderful, those kinds of words. what happened to the lexicon? Did he just not develop the vocabulary that's commensurate with a degree from the prestigious Wharton School? So I kind of wondered that, and I even mentioned that on the air, that it doesn't link, doesn't connect. Well, it appears that in his niece's book, Mary Trump's book, that he did not want published, that someone was allegedly paid to take the scholastic aptitude test for the president so he could gain admittance. Now, if that's the case, that means that he got in and someone else didn't get in. So, looks like he might have bumped somebody out who deserved to get in to the Wharton School because of fraud. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that his degree would be rescinded? Well, I would hope so. I would hope so. Because fraud was used. I mean, people have been put in jail for bribing their way into prestigious universities throughout the country. Remember those scandals? Like Stanford and Harvard and, others. Remember that? Parents have been sent to prison for paying their undeserving children's way into the universities. And by the way, allegedly the president has donated, a lot of money, like in the millions, to the school, the Wharton School. Now, I can't prove if that's true or not, but that's what I read. Interesting. So, what a mess. We've got two candidates that are, appear to be mentally challenged. I can't remember what they said. They rely on, counsel that, is inept and has hidden agendas and is out for themselves, enrich themselves. So we got two candidates who appear to have done that. We got another guy who is bipolar. At least that's the new claim. He's bipolar, and he's going to ask Elon Musk for help. What a mess! What a mess! I'm not voting for any of those guys. That's just where I'm parked. You can be mad at me for not voting. I can't, with a good conscience, vote for anybody. It's like voting for the evil of three lessers. Evil of three lessers. So, getting back down to earth here, automotive battery chargers, 12-volt battery chargers. If you don't have one, I suggest you seriously consider getting one. Because with the lack of the use of these cars that we've got parked, I hardly drive any of my vehicles. I got to keep the battery charged because they do have computers. The new model cars have computers. Even the old ones have computers. Even my 1996 antique Mercedes has a computer, and if I don't keep the battery charged, it forgets who I am and it won't let me use the car. Seriously. It won't let me use the car if the battery's not fully charged. So you need to, once a week or so, put a charger on your car's battery, because the computer's draining it while you sleep. You leave your car for 2 weeks, you're not getting in it, and it's not going anywhere because the battery will be dead. So do you have a battery charger? Well, here's the lowdown on battery chargers. So a 1.5 ampere hour to 1 amp. So a half an amp to an amp. They're called trickle chargers. And they very slowly charge a battery. And a 6 to 10 ampere size, well, that's like an overnight type charger. It might take a little longer than that. How much longer? Well, you can read the label on the top of the battery, and it'll tell you how many ampere hours it is. And so, typically, a pickup truck battery might be a 100 ampere hour battery. That means it will store, if it's perfect condition, brand new condition, 100 amperes of charge. So how long will it take a 1 ampere hour charger to charge a 100 ampere hour battery? 100 hours. If everything were working perfectly and there were no losses. But there are losses. So it'll take longer than that. So it'll take a little longer than 1 hour to charge a 1 ampere hour battery with a 1 ampere hour charger. A 100 ampere hour battery, which is what you would typically have, would take about 100 hours. Now, if you had a 10 ampere hour battery charger and a 100 ampere hour battery, it'd take 10 hours. So that's why they say that the 6 to 10 amp battery chargers are overnight chargers. And what happens is they start out at a high rate of charge, and they lower automatically the rate of charge based on what the battery can accept. So as the battery becomes more and more charged, it will accept a charge at a lower and lower charging rate automatically. So before you charge your battery, here's what you should do. Well, here's what I do. You do your own research. Don't believe anything I say, but here's what I do. I put on gloves. You know, those blue gloves, vinyl gloves. I wear eye protection. I wear a long sleeve shirt, long pants, in case I spill any acid on me. And then I always check the electrolyte. What is the electrolyte? Well, that is that liquid, and it's sulfuric acid in lead acid batteries in your car. Typically, very good. It's typically sulfuric acid. So you open those caps. Some of them are screw caps. Some of them are pry-off caps. Make sure you have eye protection on, and make sure you have water to rinse off any drops of acid that get on you, because it will blind you. It will ruin your lungs. It will ruin the mucous membranes in your nasal cavities. You want to do this outside. And you want to do it where you have plenty of light, and you want to have plenty of water to flush if it gets on you. And then you look in the cells, and you can look on the internet to tell you how to tell when they are fully at their top level. There's like a line that will tell you how full to fill them. And compare all the cells. And what you'll see is they're at different levels. Typically, the outside cells of the battery evaporate more electrolyte than the inside cells. And what do you top them off with? Only one thing. There's only one thing to ever use, and that's distilled water. Nothing else. Nothing else. Distilled water only. If you use tap water, you'll probably ruin your battery. So how much is distilled water? $1 a gallon. And find some very clean method of slowly pouring that distilled water into the cells, then close the cells with the caps or the snap-on caps or screw-on caps. Make sure you wear gloves. Work slowly, deliberately, and immediately rinse off if you get any sulfuric acid on your skin. Don't breathe it. Look up how to do it, and then you charge your battery. Because if your electrolyte level is down and you charge your battery, you'll probably ruin it. Okay? So those are some thoughts about batteries, and we've got Joe with us from Guns 80. Welcome, Joe.
Hello, sir. How you doing?
Very well. I'm glad you're able to be with us. So, Joe, your company, I've been there, Guns80, guns80.com, Guns, the number 8, the number 0.com. You're on the internet, and you sell kits to build AR-15 type rifles and pistols. I've been to your factory. I've actually driven my pickup truck inside your factory building in Roanoke, Virginia. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And it's quite the neat thing. So class, I've been there. And Joe, you have been to Missouri, right?
Yeah, we had a very wonderful time spending time with you and your family during the expo event.
Well, thank you, Joe. And so, class, I wanted you to know that I know Joe. I know his company. I've been there, and I have some of his products. And so what we're talking about is you can build your own AR-15 from a kit. And Joe, tell me, please, and tell the class, what is this kit? How does it work? Who can own it? Are there any restrictions? Do you have to have any paperwork? Let's give us the thumbnail sketch of what this thing is.
Sure, I'll be glad to, Vince. The main thing is that as long as you follow all current gun laws, you don't have any issues at all. So you can't own the kit if you're a felon or you've had your gun rights removed or anything like that. That's not allowed. But as long as you are legally able to own a gun, then you're legally allowed to buy and build your own firearm. I mean, that's just the main stressor is if your gun rights have been removed, then you can't do it. But as long as you still have your gun rights, you can. But I mean, the nice thing about it is the kit that we've created is extremely simple. We've taken all the skill out of it. So as long as you can run a drill press, it's not a problem at all. We even make sure that everything we send out has actually been test fired, not once, but twice. We make sure that it cycles properly so you're not going to have any issues with the upper. And then all you have to do is we leave it the lower part built to you, which is really simple. We have step-by-step videos available on our website to show you how to do it. We can answer any kind of questions that you've had. We can walk you step-by-step. And the nice thing about it is that we even have kits where even if you mess up your first lower, we'll send you out another lower just for the cost of shipping and handling. So in case you're worried about it, you don't have to worry that you've ruined your whole rifle. You don't have to worry that you've ruined your whole kit. So we'll go ahead and take care of you. We've tried to take every precaution to make sure that you can build and have a safe firearm as easy as possible as long as you can legally own one.
So, Joe, here's something that I don't think most people have thought about. When people generally think about buying a rifle or a pistol or a shotgun or a revolver, they think it has to be made by some company, Remington or Ruger or Smith & Wesson or Colt. You know, they think it has to be made by some company that they've heard the name of, or possibly some company that they haven't heard the name of. Well, the fact of the matter is, in many locations, if you want to build your gun all by yourself, every part of it, let's say you decide to make a gun out of a piece of pipe. I'm not talking about a barrel. I'm just talking about a piece of pipe. I believe you can make your own gun, and you don't have to tell anybody or register it if you are, able to own a gun from a manufacturer. You can make your own. I mean, I'm talking about a very simple gun. Single shot.
You're 100% correct. I mean, there's even people out there that print them on their own 3D printers, which is completely legal. As long as you have rights to own a firearm, then you can actually make your own gun. Now, some states and municipalities have different views on what you do with it once you make it, but yes, you can legally do it.
Yep. And so we're going to go from that point. Yes, you can make your own, and let's actually build one that you'll really be quite proud of. And that will be a Guns 80 AR-15. We'll be right back. We're talking about building your own gun. In this case, it happens to be an AR-15 rifle or an AR-15 pistol. So if you think about it, class, there's some parts that are really difficult for the do-it-yourselfer to make. For example, a rifled barrel, with the rifling inside the barrel, that's really hard to do yourself. The trigger, that's pretty hard to do yourself. Building a magazine that works to hold the cartridges, that's pretty hard. Getting the sights to work, that's pretty hard. Building your own ammunition with making your own brass cases and lead and powder and primers, that's really hard to do. It's not hard to reload, but it's hard to build it from scratch. And it's hard to build a stock. But you can buy all of these parts in a kit. But the lower part of the receiver is not finished. So you have to drill some holes and do a little bit of milling. And how is it that the federal government, the BATF, says, well, you can buy all these parts as a kit, and that's perfectly legal without any paperwork, but you can't buy a complete one without paperwork, a brand new complete, rifle, pistol, shotgun, revolver. You can't buy that complete, ready to fire, without a background check for a brand new, we'll call it a gun. But you can buy an almost finished, 80% complete kit without any paperwork, right? Isn't that the way it goes?
You're 100% correct. And what has happened is the government had to come through and decide the point where a firearm actually becomes a firearm. And this is the last step before it actually becomes a firearm. And then all you have to do is complete the last 20%. But from, as you said before, it's really not 20%. It's more like 5% that you have to complete because everything's already been assembled. Everything's been test fired for you except for the lower half. And then you do have to do some milling and drilling. But even that it comes with a guide that makes it really simple. There's videos online. I mean, it can easily be done. Once you've done a couple of them, you can easily do them in 30 minutes to an hour. Your first one, you want to take a little bit more time. I think the old adage is you want to measure twice and cut once. So, you want to make sure that you're doing it correctly, but it's really not something that's that complicated.
Joe, I remember you coming to Missouri, and you brought with you a drill press. Exactly, and I saw the drill press. It's the same drill press that I had. I bought one used many, many years ago. It's a Craftsman drill press. it was maybe $100, $125, something like that used. Now you can buy a brand new one, a small little benchtop. This was a floor standing, pretty big, heavy unit. But you can buy a used drill press for, let's say, $100 or less if you buy a smaller one. And you need an XY table, meaning something that can clamp down and you can move the lower part of the receiver that you're going to mill and drill out with the drill bits that are provided in the mill bit that's provided from your company. But you need to precisely drill straight down. And so an XY table will move, let's say, up and down and left and right by turning a crank. So you're going to want one of those too. And you're going to want I bought one for, I don't know, maybe $35 or $50 for an XY table. It's just a nice thing to have anyway. So other than that, what do I need, Joe, to build this AR-15 kit from guns80.com?
I mean, depending on who you talk to, I mean, there's guys out there that'll sell you hundreds and hundreds of tools. And I mean, you really don't need those things. I mean, all you really need is patience, time, and the actual XY table and the drill press. I mean, that's really simply all you need. I mean, there are pins and punches that make it easier to put the pins in and stuff like that, but it can all be done without that as long as you have some precision and you take your time. Those other things are mainly just for speed. I mean, as I said, we've already taken care of your upper. We've already assembled it for you. It's already been test fired. That's where a lot of more of the actual tools come into. All you really have to do is go through, drill the holes in the side, you build the actual lower, and then you assemble it. It's really, really simple. I mean, you can see videos, as I said, of people doing it well under an hour. And as long as you have those things, that's all you need.
So, Joe, who are your customers? I'm not asking, for their names, but can you categorize them? Are they do-it-yourselfers? Are they people who have never owned guns before? Never owned a rifle? Who are they?
Well, that's a very interesting question. We have a gamut of customers starting anywhere from, sometimes when you look at the forms and the paperwork to fill out a firearm, I mean, that can be a very scary place to begin, and they don't want to end up on some kind of government registry or list. So a lot of them are brand new gun owners for the first time they want to do it. But you have people that are more experienced that actually own some firearms, and they want to have a firearm that, let's say, for lack of a better term, is off the book. And then you have...
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. Class, Joe's with us, and he's the CEO of Guns80.com, Guns80.com. Let me give you the phone number for Guns80.com, 844-248-6780, 844-248-6780. So we've mentioned that in order to make one of these, absolutely legal without paperwork for most places in the United States. No paperwork at all, no registration, no forms. Nobody needs to know about it. And Joe, would you ever turn over your records to the government as to who bought from you?
Not at all. We have no interest in doing anything like that. I mean, the reason why we originally started this company was because we believed in our freedoms, number one, and then number two, we also wanted to bring cost-effective AR-15s to the marketplace. And there's a real lack of education out there on the AR-15, and there's a lot of negative language associated with it. But I mean, it's just like a hammer. It's just another tool in your arsenal. And then, there's things that you just need to have in life. And this is one of them. And originally I never knew anything about an AR-15 until I was told it was bad and I wasn't allowed to have one. And then I was like, well, why is this bad? Why am I not allowed to have one? What makes this different than anything else? And the more research I did, the more I found out it wasn't anything bad. It's actually a lot of fun. I've taken my kids to the range. They love shooting an AR-15. It's one of the highlights of things that they can do. I mean, it's amazing how much fun you can have with it. Number one, it's a good protection weapon. And number two, it's even good for hunting.
It does a lot in one package. Now, Joe, so the one piece that you would be working on, class, to finish this, we'll call it the extra 20%, but it's really just 5%, as Joe said. It's like an hour or maybe 2 hours of your time if you've never done it before. You just be very, very careful. And just, measure twice, cut once. It's as simple as that. You want to make sure you put the holes in the right place. You get the bits with it. You get the nuts, the nuts, washers, and machine screws with it. You get the jig with it. You get everything that you need to finish it. And there are plenty of videos to do this. The part that you'll be working on is the lower receiver. Now, the lower receiver is the part that you put your finger through to connect with the trigger. That's the part. That's the part you're going to be working on. You're not going to be making a barrel. You're not going to be making the trigger. You're going to be making, we'll call it the holder for the trigger, and where the barrel will attach. Okay? You're not going to make the magazine. You're not going to make the sights. You're not going to make the ammunition. Everything is provided for you except for the ammunition. And all you do is use your drill press, and you can buy a drill press, use it, and resell it if you want, or you can borrow somebody's drill press, or you can do what we've done is and buy a drill press and keep it and use it for other projects. Now, Joe, the neat thing about this is you can pick whatever barrel length you want, right? And don't they come typically from 14.5 to 26 inches?
They do, yeah. And our kit comes with the standard 16-inch barrel. The reason why we just feel that it's, that's kind of what the platform was built on. The nice thing about it is even if you buy our kit and decide that you want to put a lower barrel on, I mean, the best part about having an AR-15 is the fact that all parts are changeable. The platform has a very standardized purpose, and then everything from there you can go out and customize it as far as you like. We came out with something that was low cost, that was easy to ship, that fit the legal requirements in 99% of all destinations. And that's why we came out with this kit. And then, as I said, the main thing that we like to focus on is the kit that we send you out is something that, if I send it out to you, it's something I would keep for myself. I don't want to send you out a kit that's not going to function. I don't want to send you out a kit. There's people out there that sell unassembled kits, and the difference is their uppers haven't been test fired. No one's gone through and done the safety checks that our team does before we actually send it out to you. And, I mean, that's the key to Guns 80 is we want to send you out a kit that actually has been test fired on the upper half, because that's where things can go really wrong in a hurry. The lower half, from what I recall, there's as much as like 12 pounds of pressure, and that's mainly just the hammer. But, I mean, there's nothing down there that can explode. There's nothing that can really go wrong with the lower half of the rifle. That's what makes it safe. That's what makes it easy, is that we've done the hard part. We've test fired it. Our gunsmith has gone through and actually made sure that your rifle cycles so that you're not going to have to worry about that. You can go out and maybe find a lower price kit, probably not now, but if you find that, you're going to be trying to figure out how to put the barrel on, and then the chance of it having more issues is there, and that's the reason why we chose to go with this kit.
Joe, there's something really neat that you can buy, and I have one class. It's a 22 long rifle conversion kit for the Guns 80 kit. So literally, when you're all done and you've finished the process of drilling out the lower receiver, you can buy another kit which will convert this finished AR-15 to shoot 22 long rifles at a much lower cost, rather than shooting the full cartridge AR-15 223 or 5.56 cartridge. So you can literally shoot 22 long rifles out of it, and it works. Now it's not quite as accurate, but it makes less recoil, it makes less noise, it costs less to shoot, and it's a great way to train that new shooter on how to use the AR-15. So you're using the full-size rifle, the full weight, the same trigger, everything's the same except the magazine is different, and it plugs right in. So you don't have to make any physical changes to it other than swap the magazine, put 22 long rifles in it, and change the bolt. That's it. So it's like a 30-second conversion. It's as simple as that. And I paid $150 for mine many, many years ago because I thought that'd be fun to have and a nice way to train, people who haven't shot before. Do you sell an AR-15 to 22 long rifle conversion kit?
We actually don't sell them, but it is a very good thing to have. Like you said, it's a lot of fun. It does cost down the cost of shooting. And then, as you said, if you're training a new shooter and you want to train them appropriately, it's nice to start out with something that's not going to have as much recoil, is not going to have the same kind of, lack of a better term, fight. It's going to be very, very simple for them to learn on. And as you said, I really appreciate the fact that you talk about you do get used to a full-size rifle when you use something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, class, this is something that you should consider. I'm not saying you have to. I'm saying you should consider having some means of protection. And this works. This really works. And Joe, you said something to me very interesting. We were talking privately several days ago, and you were talking about what if a person has a registered AR-15? And go ahead.
My thoughts would be that, you could always swap out your lower. I mean, it would be a nice way to come in, build your own lower, and then you could always turn it in. And then at that point, you don't have the firearm anymore because you've turned in the lower. You've turned in the serialized part of it. You can turn it into your local police department, and then you're off the list.
Now, what we're saying is, let's say you bought a brand new AR-15, and you went through all the paperwork. You bought it from your dealer, or you bought it at a gun show from a dealer, and they said, okay, well, we've got to do a background check on you. We've got to check with the feds and make sure that you're able to have this. And we've got the serial number of the new one, and we're going to send that in with your name and address. And so we know who you are. We know what AR-15 is that you bought because it was from Colt, or it was from Smith & Wesson, or it was from, some manufacturer, and it's serialized. So we know what it is, and you're on the list. And then if things get to the point where you decide you don't want to be on that list, you just turn in the lower, just the lower. That's considered the gun, if you will. The barrel would be an accessory. The magazine would be an accessory. The bolt would be an accessory. The grip would be an accessory. The stock would be an accessory. The lower part of the receiver is what they're interested in because you can't shoot without it. And then you use your homemade or home finished kit from Guns 80. Is that what we're talking about, Joe? Did I say that right?
You're 100% correct. I mean, all the parts are interchangeable. It's really, really simple to swap out. Once you've actually got your lower finished, you can test it out with all your parts, make sure your component works, and then just take it to the police and turn it in. Tell them they can have it. Because at that point, there's no paperwork leading back to you. You've turned your gun into the authorities. You don't have a gun anymore at this point because you've turned in the actual part that they consider a firearm. I mean, we have no knowledge of what's going to happen in this world. There's stuff that I see day to day that I never could imagine happening in this world. And this is one peace of mind, one safety where you can have a fully functional firearm really, really cheap just using something you already have. And then at that point, it's not on the list. So when they come, God forbid, looking for guns, they're not looking for that one because you can say, I've already turned it in. You guys have it. I turned it in at my police department. Here. And then they're not looking for that.
Joe, let's be completely negative about this whole thing. What is the worst case? Someone buys a kit from you. What's the worst case? What happens?
They
can't finish it.
The lower and they give us a call and we work on if they buy the actual program that has a replacement lower, they pay they get $15 shipping and we ship them out and try it again. We've never had someone come through and mess up more than 2 lowers. Okay. And that's been extremely rare. 95% of our customers finish the lower the first time. And, I've heard of customers that we've had even put a little bit of JB Weld on a place that they've gone too far, and they still function completely fine. So, I mean, it's not really that hard. As long as you have common sense to pay attention, to slow down, and to actually run your drill press, don't get in a hurry, don't get too excited, understand that you're working on something that you want for a long time, then you're not going to have any issues. Do your research like you would do anything else. Watch a video, watch it again, take some notes, take your time. It's really that simple. It's just like if you were doing anything else. You wouldn't let someone loose in a car without doing some research before it. You'd want to research, you'd want to take your time, and then it's just that simple.
Joe, I work on cars here. Our son has a business, and you've met him, and he repairs cars. And it takes us a lot longer to do the same job as, we'll say another professional. Okay. And the difference is we measure twice. And we see their work, and it's horrible, absolutely horrible. They'll use an impact gun to take off a drain plug to drain the oil out of a car. We would never consider doing that. And they round out the bolts, they round out the nuts. When they rip something out, they don't put wiring back where it was. They just let it hang. It's carelessness. Now you can do it really fast and not do it well, or you can take your time. So what Joe has said many times in this broadcast, and I've heard him say it on this broadcast, take your time. You can do this. You absolutely can do it. And I'm looking at the jig. The jig is the part that goes, you're going to bolt 2 halves of a jig over the lower receiver. And you get the machine bolts or the machine screws. They're threaded with a nut and a washer. And you're going to bolt it over the lower receiver. And it says 3/8, 5/32, and so forth. It tells you exactly where to drill and what drill to use. It's almost idiot-proof, almost. But you do have to take your time, and you do have to be careful. Class Joe is with us, and he is the CEO of Guns80.com, GUNS80.com. And Joe, I've got a couple quick questions. We're in the last segment of the broadcast. What would you say the ratio of male to female customers of yours is? Do you have a feel for that?
Yeah, I would say it's actually 50-50, which is surprising. Was surprising to us when we started.
Mm-hmm. So half of your customers are female, half are male, and I know a female customer of yours, and I know several male customers of yours. So I do know a female, and we're talking like 30 years old class for the female. Now, what is the cost for a complete kit, Joe? How does it work?
Right now, our supply line's kind of collapsed on us. I guess it's Corona related and what's going on out in the world. But a kit's running $650 for a complete kit.
And what is in that kit, just so the class knows?
That kit, you get everything that you're looking for. You get the whole, everything you need. The upper receiver completely assembled. You get the lower receiver. You get all the lower parts that are needed, and the jig is included as well with the milling bits. Okay,
so you get the stock. You get the lower receiver, you get the upper receiver, you get the barrel, you get the sights, and you get the hand grip and the bolt and the magazine. Is that right?
There's no sights on it, and then there's no magazine. There's 2 reasons for that. A lot of people want to go with scopes and different mounts on top, and it's hard to pick one thing that people would want. And the other thing is, in a lot of states, there's actually restrictions on magazines, anywhere between 10 to 30. So we don't include a magazine just for the fact that I don't want to get someone in trouble by sending them something they're not allowed to own. So that's why we've stripped the actual magazine away. Because originally, back when you got your kit, we did provide magazines, but there was just so much legal change in magazine, and it seems like it changes month to month on capacity limits, that we don't include those anymore.
Oh, okay, Joe. So we get the kit from you, $650. Now we're going to need a magazine. What will that cost us, and where do we get it?
I mean, magazines are anywhere from like $5 to $15. I mean, you can get it at any kind of sporting goods store, the majority of them, and then you could actually go to a gun store if you needed to. Or the best place that I found to buy magazines, you can go online, you can order your magazine, and get your ammunition at the same time. That way you don't have to go into any stores. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You can order exactly what you want, and that's where you get the best prices on both.
Okay, so we're literally talking total cost. Now, you don't sell the bits don't come with it standard. That's an option. Now, is that included, the $25 bit kit, the drill bits and the milling bit? Is that included with the $650?
When you buy the full kit, it does come with the bits. If you buy just the lower by itself, it doesn't come with it.
Okay, so the $650, I use a credit card with you, or send you a check, or some method of payment. I pay you $650. Is there shipping?
It's $14.95 shipping.
Okay, so $650 plus $14.95, roughly $15. That is all I spend and get the kit for you. Later on, I just have to get the magazines and the front grip so that I can mount sights and a scope. and or a scope, right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
So what would the total cost be from what I would spend with you plus what I would spend with others? Not ammunition, but the cost of a complete working with sights rifle and with a magazine. What would that cost?
I would say that you could get multiple magazines and sights for about $50, and then so you'd be looking at about $700. And then if you want to get your drill press and things like that, you'd be looking at a little bit more. But I'd say you could easily complete the whole project for less than $850.
Okay, class. Less than $850. That's buying a drill press. You can buy a benchtop new. I would personally rather see you buy a used Craftsman type, something like that was, made 30 years ago, kind of like what Joe has, kind of like what we have. A great drill press that'll last, generations. So I would recommend doing that. Joey, have any other further advice for our class? What to consider when considering the AR-15 80% finished kit? Any words of wisdom?
The only other word I would have is, even if you don't feel like you want to invest in a full kit now, maybe just get your lower and put it away for a rainy day. I hope that everything goes well and that there's nothing crazy that goes on in the future. But I mean, everybody likes to have a little security put away. In my mind, if you don't feel like buying a kit today, at least you can put away a little something for the future.
All right, let me see if I've got this right. So in between the lines that you just said, I'm imagining that you're saying the hard part to get is going to be the lower receiver. So you get that it's on sale at $79.95, I guess plus shipping at guns80.com. The barrel you think you'll be able to get later. The magazine and ammo you'll be able to get later. But the tough part is the lower receiver. Is that correct?
Correct, especially if they do some kind of changing of laws or go through and decide that they want to move the line of 80% to somewhere else. At least you've got that put away.
Very good. Joe, thanks so much for being with us today. Guns80.com, GUNS80.com. Joe, thanks for being with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
And so does our class. You too.